Waiters, what's the saddest time waiting for someone you have experienced? Got at a party of 15 to 20 inches for a woman's bridal shower. Her mom decorated the table and chairs and the whole corner for the party. Everyone in the restaurant could see there was going to be a party there on a busy Friday night. 4 people showed of the possible 20. That includes the future bride and mom. I didn't even care about the money I was missing out on. 4 tables of my section gone on a busy weekend shift. I just felt so bad for her. You know it's bad when you're not even worried about your tips. Ugh, this one was tough. I worked at a pretty fancy steakhouse in town, and we had a private dining room that could set up to 32 at a single, long table. To book the room we charge a $1,500 deposit, which we then used to cover part of the bill. It was a deposit, not a room charge. Anyways, this girl books it for 26 people, puts the deposit on her card. She shows up with her sister, and then after about 20 minutes, 2 of their friends show up and sit at the opposite end of this giant table from the birthday girl and her sister. Nobody else came. They waited an hour. The birthday girl was sobbing. The other 2 just awkwardly left. It was awful. I'm grateful to my manager, who in a moment of compassion refunded the whole deposit back onto the poor girl's card. I felt terrible for her. That's horrible. It must have meant so much to her since she is willing to splurge. I haven't bartended in a million years, but the saddest one was a guy in his 30s. He had a 2-top, asked for a bottle of top shelf champagne, candles lit, all that. Told me they were celebrating. No one showed. Guy looked morose, but had an appetizer, poured a glass of champagne for the person who wasn't there, then asked for the bill. I felt bad, he obviously got stood up, so I brought him a dessert in the house. He smiled and told me it was his anniversary. My face must have showed my sadness for him, so he clarified his wife died of cancer a few months ago. It may have been the saddest thing I've seen. The guy's had something horrible happen to him and still decided to go out and attempt to remember the good times, not dwell on the bad. You were nice to him and that probably meant a lot. His day probably sucked, but it sucked less than it could have done. Not a waiter, but worked at a coffee shop for several years and made friends with tons of regulars. One of the regulars, we'll call him Jay, was working on his PhD in art history or something to that effect at the university near us. He came in one day, got his usual tea and asked if I could charge him for a latte, but make it later. No big deal. I was bussing tables and asked who the latte was for and very excitedly expressed that he was meeting a lady and it was kind of a date. He was an awkward kind of guy, but very interesting and incredibly friendly. 1 hour passes. No show. 2. No show. Finally 3. He's looking despondent and starts collecting his things and leaves. She showed up 20 minutes later asking about Jay. Apparently they got their times completely mixed up. He comes in the next day and I mentioned that she came in looking for him and he looked so excited. I found out a week or so later from him that she basically blew him off a second time. He was so crestfallen. It broke my heart. That one was almost going well, and then no. My poor heart. Not exactly a waiter, but I was working at a bar a few years back and there often was this girl, in her early 20s maybe, who sometimes used to meet her mother at the bar, maybe about every 2 or 3 months. The thing is, more often than not the mother either came extremely late, 1 or 2 hours at least, or didn't came at all. When she came, there often was a huge tension between the two. It was obvious that they had some unresolved issues. Watching the girl wait for hours even if it was clear that the mother wouldn't come on that day always broke my heart. As a barkeeper and since she was a regular, I tried my best to engage a conversation with her to distract her a little, but there's only so much you can do. Fun fact, years after I stopped working at that bar, I met her at a random party and we had a great evening night together. She told me that she broke up with her mother though. It sucks being the child and trying to resolve issues with your parents because you want them to be a part of your life, but then they refuse to do any work on their part. UGHHH. This gentleman in his mid-40s came to my restaurant frequently and would not order his drink until his wife got there. He would wait for a few minutes, then pull out a framed picture of a woman, set it on the table, and proceed to order his food and drink. He would talk to the framed picture and have dinner with her about once a week. I noticed him doing this often and told my co-worker I thought it was cute he was having dinner with his late wife, and she replied, "Oh, no, that's not his wife. He found that picture at Goodwill and has been in a relationship with it ever since. He told me that a long time ago. What did I expect from working right off the freeway in Cracktown?" Very true story, no lie. They had us in the first half, not gonna lie. I was actually a hostess at the time and I was asked to take the table for a server. An old man came in asking for a table of 6 and he asked for 6 waters. I set up his table and I put his order in. He said it was his birthday. He was there for about an hour or two and nobody showed up. It was really sad. He ended up tipping me like $30 and he said sorry for the trouble. I still think about that guy. I hope he's doing okay. Ugh. I have no idea why I clicked on this thread. It's just making me super depressed. I hope that man is doing okay too. Guy was dressed really nice. Says his date should be there soon and goes ahead and is seated. He orders a drink and 30 minutes pass by. Then an hour. And another drink later. He started fidgeting with something and I noticed it was a ring. After an hour and a half he asked for his check and muttered something about there goes 2 years wasted and down the drain. He tipped 2x's bill. Poor guy. Was working an evening shift and a relatively younger guy came in and waited for his date. She showed up and not even 10 minutes later he got up and left and she sat there crying. Patrons that are there to break up are also hard to witness. A woman came in 4 nights in a row just in case she got the day wrong. She'd sit at the bar wearing the same flowery dress every night and would hopefully look at the door every single time it opened. Left in tears the first 2 nights when we closed. The 3rd and 4th nights she just stared vacantly at the door until we had to make sure she left. I never saw her again. I don't think any other staff did either, but we all felt really bad for her. She got a couple free drinks and apps. We didn't even care if it was a scam cause she seemed so broken about it. A woman came in 4 nights in a row just in case she got the day wrong. I feel bad for her, but this is not normal behavior. I wonder if she's okay. I was a server for 5 years and the most heartbreaking experience I had was an older woman, probably in her 60s, was waiting for her grandson to come meet her for lunch. When I greeted her at the table she was very excited as I assumed she didn't see him much. As time went by no one showed up so she decided to order. Towards the end of her meal no had shown up, so it being a slow shift, me and my GF, we worked together at the same restaurant, which is where we met. Decided to just talk with her for a little bit and give her some company. We both felt so sad for this sweet old lady, but we could tell that simple act of kindness made her day. Shame on that grandson. Anyone who stands up their own grandma is an ungrateful punk. Place I used to work at had a man come in every night for a week, wait for a few hours, order food and drinks, then leave with no one showing up. Later learned he was just trying to cope with his wife's death, believing that she'd arrived to greet him at the restaurant where they had their first date. In a strange and not so sad way, that location may have allowed him to feel close to her, and that was good enough. Not a waiter, but to cheer this thread up, I waited an hour and a half for my date to show once. I ended up sitting texting my friends. Fed up, but kept telling myself 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Just as I was about to give up she showed. She explained she was a nurse on a mental health ward and one of her young people had gone into crisis. She'd been stressing the whole time. Anyway, we've been married 10 years in February. Sometimes it's worth the wait. I'm not a waiter, but I set up a joint party for my son and my nephew who have the same birthday. His stepmom decided not to bring him to his own party. The boys were born on the same day 3 years apart. I set up a pizza party with family and joint friends. His dad was working and the stepmom just decided not to bring him. Long before cell phones. Not the wait staff, but the waiter. I had set an OkCupid date at this nice coffee shop in Brooklyn. I get there, and I know the barista from college. I'm the only person in the shop at the time, so we talk a little. Awkwardly, gradually other customers arrive, so she attends to them and I attend to my phone. It gets to the point where my date is 20 minutes late and hasn't been responding to my messages asking about an ETA. I'm sweating profusely. I'm so embarrassed that I'm probably being stood up in front of someone who I had several classes with years prior and knows most of my friends. I feel so humiliated. Then my date walks in, stands there for a moment, and walks right back out the door. Barista, was that her? Me, yup. Barista, what in butthole? That comment made things slightly better. What, why, that's evil. Not a waiter, but was out with my girlfriend and we were seated next to a date. Guy was clearly trying to engage with the girl, but the girl kept looking at her phone disinterested. Guy initiated all the conversations, only to be met with one-word answers. He ordered a lot of food, it's a dessert place, so a lot of small meals, and then the girl suddenly took her bag and left. He banged the table after about paying, and just left with the food untouched. Everyone in the vicinity, including the waiters, were visibly shocked. I felt so bad for the guy. She sounds like an awful person. I used to work birthdays at a science museum. So, one weekend, the birthday family arrives. I escort them back to their room as usual and start talking with the mom about how she wants things to go, setting up the room, etc. She mentions that they just moved here and her son doesn't have many friends yet. So they invited one cousin about their son's age, and then just invited the kid's entire, second grade maybe, class to the party. An hour goes by and the little cousin has shown up, but nobody else. The little dude invited every kid in his class and not one of them showed up. Now, to be honest, the birthday boy himself didn't seem that concerned. He and his cousin were happily playing with each other the whole time. I just don't think he was really that warmed up to the kids in his class to begin with. But the mom was heartbroken. She had set this party up for her son, had bought a birthday package that included a private room, general admission for all guests, and me taking a dewar of liquid nitrogen to the room and making ice cream for the party. She had high hopes for this, and nobody showed, and she was in tears. And she asked me to go out the museum and just invite random kids into her son's birthday party, just so that there would be at least some other kids for him to play with. And this is the part that I'll never forget. We found a half dozen kids who were interested in coming to the party, and the mom was very grateful to them. But word also got out to the staff, and the staff absolutely rallied around this kid. Other employees showed up to sing him happy birthday. Some staffers went to the gift shop to buy him gifts. One of my managers got the family vouchers for future admission. We have a mascot, a robot, who will walk around and play with guests, and he showed up to the party with some gifts from our gift shop. I brought down the materials for making a couple of different types of homemade slime, and made slime with the kids. One of my co-workers, one of the smartest and kindest people I've ever met, spoke with the mom about the son's interests, and discovers the birthday boy is a fan of the Avengers. So he goes back to where we have a laser etcher on display, and comes back with a wood burning that is a picture of the Avengers wishing the son happy birthday. By the end of the party, the mom was in tears again, but for a very different reason. A few days later she sent us the sweetest letter about how much it all meant to her. I worked 3 to 5 birthdays a weekend, every weekend, for about 5 years, and they were always fun. But that was the absolute best day at work I've ever had. Once at my shift I saw a really shy guy. You could see that he is on a budget, but OMG, he was so trying so hard and looked so excited about upcoming date. He brought 1 rose, and asked what he can purchase on €10 to make this evening beautiful. My heart melted so much that I offered him for free 2 glasses of wine and a dessert. I was a manager. We put on a table some candles, and so he was sitting there and with a big smile waiting for his date to come. But she never came. He waited like 2 hours, nervously checking on his phone. When he left, he gave this rose to me and thanked for kindness towards him. He was so broke. So was my heart about this situation. NGL. This almost made me cry. See? We had a 21st birthday party booked for 20. The family showed up early with a few friends. They had a few drinks and let the staff know some of the party were running late. Half an hour in, when the late people were supposed to arrive, 2 friends left. An hour went by and the birthday group ordered, got their starters, told the service staff some more people were coming. About 2 hours in the mother said just bring the mains out. It was so sad. I felt so bad for them, being stood up by 14 people, and the 2 friends who did show up didn't even eat. Years ago when I was bartending, a man showed up in the early afternoon and told me that he was waiting on someone. And when I asked, he told me that it was his ex-wife and that they were celebrating that day. Now that was something that I wasn't about to dig into, so I just went on with my work, but once she arrived they seemed remarkably friendly with each other and started ordering the works. Steaks, expensive drinks, appetizers they only took a bite or two of, and multiple desserts. Towards the end of the meal, while chatting with the two of them, I made the mistake of asking what they were celebrating. They told me that it was the birthday of their son who passed away, and every year they get together despite their divorce to celebrate him, order all his favorite food, and drink all his favorite drinks. They got a bit misty-eyed, but this seemed like a therapeutic experience for them. I on the other hand had to take 5 in the walk-in freezer to have a little cry afterwards. Not a waiter but a patron at the restaurant. My girlfriend had taken me out to this local niche type restaurant. One of the ones that was the type where you could get vintage old game and stuff to play while you got your food. As we get in, and seated young man around my age at the time, think 18-20ish, comes in holding a nice bunch of flowers, and he is dressed really nice with the hair done up and everything. It clearly took him a lot of preparation. So me and my girlfriend order and talk and enjoy the evening, and we realize that this guy is still alone. After an hour we have our food and are eating, but he's still sitting there drinking a soda and checking his phone. Then the door, then his phone, every 5 minutes. This went on for the whole 2-ish hours we were there. It became obvious by his increasing anxiety and glum look that he must have known he was stood up but either couldn't accept it yet or was still desperately holding out hope. Me and my girlfriend felt so bad for him that when we paid our bill we gave the waitress extra money to send him a cheesecake. Waitress ended up giving him 2 just because she felt bad as well. To this day it still sticks with me seeing that poor kid go through that. And it boggles my mind because the guy wasn't bad looking. There wasn't anything apparently wrong with him. Not that it would justify it if there was. It just adds to the confusion. People can really be crappy sometimes. We gave the waitress extra money to send him a cheesecake. That's nice. Waitress ended up giving him 2. That's just rubbing salt into the wounds. Have a cheesecake on the house. And 1 for your date. Oh crap. Right. A few years ago, I took myself to a movie and dinner. It was the weekend before Valentine's Day. At the time I had a warehouse gig, and that day my step counter was at 7.9 kilometers. Being exhausted, I just sort of plopped down, ordered quietly, sipped a beer, and derped around on my phone. I must have looked like I was on the verge of tears. In reality I'd been rear-ended at a red light the week before and just hurt all over. Server calmed my cheesecake, smiled politely, and quietly remarked, "Honey, it is going to be okay." Until that point I wasn't sad to be alone, but after that I was fighting tears all the way home. A 6-year-old boy came every day with his older brother at lunchtime, and for almost a month they ordered 3 plates of food and always left 1. When I attended to them, the boy told his older brother to ask his mother for lunch because she was already arriving, but their mother never came. The boy's older brother asked me to give the food to someone who needed it when they left, and he told me that his mother had died and that he did not know how to explain to his little brother that his mother was not coming back. But that this cafeteria, it was the last place where she had taken her little brother to eat, and that is why the boy believed that she would return for the dinner. That's enough Reddit for today. I was the sad schmuck on the 23rd of December, 2019. I had set up a date with an amazing girl from Tinder. We had a lot in common, very attractive, and she lived close by. We agreed over Snapchat to meet at a Red Robin's in the area for our first date, even though she would be a little late. I got to the restaurant on time, because I had no idea what a little late meant, and got a table with a view of the door and started waiting. The first 15 minutes passed with me excitedly telling the waitress I was expecting someone and wouldn't be ordering yet. The next 15 minutes passed with me openly staring at the door, sitting up whenever someone would walk in. After 45 minutes, the waitress asked if I wanted anything, and I told her I was still waiting while I watched the door anxiously. At 1 hour I was planning on leaving soon and swinging by Target on my way home. I realized I hadn't given this girl my number, and I didn't have data, so we had no way of communicating. 15 minutes later I was about to muster up the courage to leave when two waitresses that had stopped by previously came to tell me they felt so sad and wanted to buy me a milkshake. I thanked them, but told them I had lost my appetite and half-heartedly joked that this wouldn't even be the worst thing that happened to me today. My childhood dog had been put down earlier that morning and I had spent the hours before the date digging her grave. I told one of the waitresses, JC, whose kindness I will always remember, that I had no way of communicating with my date without Wi-Fi. To which she responded by giving me her hotspot password. I connected as fast as I could and opened Snapchat to find dozens of messages from my date, explaining how her only good pants were locked in the dryer and if I minded that she showed up in sweats. I sent her my number and told her I would be glad if she showed up at all. A few minutes later, she walked in and explained that she had been in the parking lot for the past 15 minutes, not getting a response from me, thinking that I had stood her up, and was about to leave when she got my text. We're still grateful to the waitress, JC, for helping us get together. Gotta get that data plan. Bro, mint sim is like $300 for a year. I had a regular who would always come in with his wife. One day he sat in my section and I noticed his wife wasn't with him. I asked, "Where's your wife today?" He replied, "She's in heaven waiting for me." Immediately I died inside. I think I would have gone white, flopped on the bench and started crying. All those deep breaths you take when you want to cry but you try to get yourself together at the same time. Ducking heck. I would have been a wreck. Not a waiter here. On my 18th birthday this girl invited me out to drink with her friends, because all of mine were too young to drink. I said no at first, but they insisted so I went along. Got there when they said they would. Ended up waiting at the bar 2 hours before they showed up. Had a short introduction and then they went off to the bathroom. One of her friends came back out and told me that she wanted me to leave. It really hurt, but I didn't see the point of arguing. Worst part was when I got home I found out she was spreading lies that I had stalked her to the bar and told all our mutual friends. One heck of an 18th birthday. Not a waiter, but this happened to me. I went speed dating. Turned up to the venue to find it very quiet. Barely anyone was there. The event was on the second floor, so I got a pint for the time being and sat down and waited for people to turn up. I tried to go up to the second floor only to find that it had been closed off. Noticing my confusion, the barman asked if I was there for speed dating. I said yes. He told me it was cancelled. I didn't get an email about this. Nothing. So I sat there, dressed up and alone. I finished my pint and went home. Dressed up and alone. I finished my pint and went home. That, for some reason, hits hard. I'm not a waiter, but once my friend and I were out at a restaurant celebrating our new apartment. There were some people sitting next to us that were in a Tinder date. The girl kept asking the guy questions about what was apparently on his profile and he kept saying he didn't do that or just put that on there to get someone to like him. She seemed so defeated. At one point he got up without saying anything and when she asked where he was going he ignored her. Came back about 5 minutes later when this girl looks like she's on the verge of tears. She asks where he went and he just said bathroom and went back to eating. It was awkward to witness. Frick that dude. I'm not a waiter, but I got one heck of a story. I was going for a friend's party at a restaurant and when I got there was a kid sitting by the door. He was also coming to the party. When I told the waiters I was there for the party as well, they called my friend and he identified me immediately but had never seen the kid before. As it turned out, his friend who invited him to the party had the party days before and gave him the wrong date. We felt bad for the kid so we let him join our party. That day I made a new friend. Reminds me of an event a group my friend was in held. They skied and held a singles skiing event. They put up flyers and sent notices out. One of the people who showed up that morning was a 13-year-old kid who wanted to try skiing. He said everyone was nice to the kid and they all made sure he had a good day his first time on the mountain. Happened to my friend. She was a hostess at a restaurant and sat this old lady at a table while she was waiting for her friend. She stayed there for a few hours asking every now and then if her friend had showed up. My friend was heartbroken and told this to her co-worker who was working the other side of the restaurant. Turns out her co-worker also had an old lady alone at a table who had been waiting patiently for her friend. The ladies got a chance to chat a bit before they left, so it was a happy ending at least. Thank God for at least one happy ending in this thread. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.